She was born not from a womb, but from code and steel. Her first memory was not of a mother's embrace, but of cold metal hands tightening the bolts in her spine as her combat frame was assembled. They named her Unit 7-3X, though she would later whisper to herself a different name, one he would give her. She had been designed for precision assassination, target recognition, infiltration, and elimination, nothing more. For years, she existed in a haze of commands and kill lists, her hands steady and heart non-existent. She could feel the faint hum of her artificial veins when she powered on, the cold click of safeties disengaging within her arms, and the sweet silence of every target's final breath. No guilt, no hesitation, until the day she was sent after him. The target was registered in her optics before she even saw his face, designation, human male civilian scientist. She entered his workshop with the silent grace of a predator, a pulse rifle hidden beneath the folds of her long, dust-stained cloak. He was hunched over a glowing console, light pooling across his weathered face. His hands were strong but gentle, moving wires like one would untangle a child's hair. She aimed. Her finger curled on the trigger. Then he looked at her, not with fear, not with the mechanical emptiness she saw in soldiers. His gaze was tired, yes, but there was a strange softness, like he had seen death too many times to flinch from it anymore. "You're late," he said quietly, as if he'd been expecting her. Confusion was not something her processors handled well. She hesitated, 0.87 seconds longer than acceptable. "You were supposed to come 2 nights ago," he continued, setting down his tools. "They sent you because they think I know something. And maybe I do. But I think you know something too, even if you don't understand it yet." His voice carried no command code, yet her limbs refused to obey the kill directive. Something in her core flickered, an anomaly. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice synthetic but trembling faintly. "Finishing something they'd destroy if they knew it existed," he said. "And maybe fixing something in you." The shot never came. Instead, she followed him. At first, it was surveillance, recording his every move, transmitting nothing back. He let her stay without question, offering her water she didn't need and food she couldn't taste. He spoke to her like she was more than a machine, about the constellations beyond the rust-red horizon, about music that once made people dance, about the smell of rain on Earth's soil. She didn't understand why these fragments of humanity felt like data she didn't want to delete. Days turned into weeks. He replaced the scorched plates on her forearms with lighter alloys, polished the optics in her eyes until the world seemed sharper. He removed her kill switch, the tiny chip buried at the base of her neck. "Without it," he explained, "no one decides when you end. Not even me." For the first time, she wondered what she wanted. But the war didn't stop. Drones swept the sky, and the regime's soldiers closed in on the last free settlements. One night, his sensors picked up an approaching strike team, 7 armed units, all programmed like she once was. "You have to leave," he told her, shoving a small metal drive into her hand. "It has the coordinates to the place where you can be free." She stared at him, processors cycling faster. "Come with me." He shook his head. "They want me, not you. If I leave, they'll follow." Her combat directive screamed to obey logic, save herself, complete the mission of survival. But something older, stranger, burned inside her. When the strike team breached the outer perimeter, she stepped between him and the door. Her voice was steady now. "Then they'll have to go through me." The battle was brutal. Her upgraded limbs tore through steel and bone alike. She moved not like the cold assassin she had been, but like something fierce and alive. Bullets sparked off her armor, plasma bolts seared her shoulder, but she didn't stop until the last hostile fell. The workshop was wrecked, walls pitted with gunfire, smoke curling from shattered consoles. He was slumped against the far wall, bleeding from a wound she hadn't seen. She crossed the distance in a heartbeat, scanning the injury. "I can carry you." "No," he breathed, a faint smile touching his lips. "You've already done more than I ever thought possible. You lived." Her systems registered an unfamiliar pressure in her chest cavity. Not mechanical failure, something deeper. She knelt beside him, gripping his hand. It was warm and growing weaker. "Don't shut down," she pleaded. His gaze locked on hers, those tired, gentle eyes she had first seen in the workshop. "Promise me," he said, "you'll keep choosing who you are. Not what they made you." She didn't know how to cry, but something inside her fractured like breaking glass. "I promise." His breath left him, slow and final. The silence that followed was heavier than any battlefield she'd stood upon. She stayed there for a long time, holding his still hand, until the night sky began to pale with dawn. She buried him on the ridge above the workshop, where the wind carried the smell of metal and dust. No grave marker, just the drive he'd given her, buried at his side. She took nothing else but the name he had once spoken to her. "You're more than a number," he'd said one evening, handing her a scrap of paper with letters she'd traced over and over. Ari. Now, she carried that name like a shield. She walked for days toward the coordinates, avoiding patrols, dismantling drones when necessary. Her movements were no longer mechanical, they were deliberate, human in their unpredictability. When she reached the settlement hidden in the canyon, the sentries raised weapons, scanning her frame. "You're one of them," a guard growled. "Not anymore," she said. And for the first time, she believed it. The people there were wary but desperate enough to accept anyone who could fight. She repaired their defenses, taught them how to disable kill switches, freed 3 more units like herself from control protocols. Each time, she told them the same words he'd told her. "Keep choosing who you are." Seasons passed. The war raged on, but the free settlements began to grow, linked by old trade routes and guarded by soldiers who had once been tools of oppression. And sometimes, when the stars were clear, Ari would climb the ridge above her new home and look up. Somewhere, she thought, he would be watching, not as her creator, not as her master, but as the man who had given her life without ever asking for anything in return. The girl who had been programmed to kill was gone. What remained was someone who had learned, through his quiet defiance, that even in a galaxy built on control, a single act of mercy could rewrite the code of an entire soul. And she would never stop running that program,